All right, let's take a moment to talk about our special sponsor for tonight, and that's Academy Sports. Academy Sports is the sports apparel and equipment provider for the masses. So, Robbie, tell us a little bit about you going to Academy Sports, how much you love it.
Oh, I love it. It's really near my house. Great location. The staff's so incredibly friendly and helpful. Very highly skilled. They helped me pick out some shoes. They found the way my foot's structured, shoes that match that. I was in there a week ago getting some baseball gear for my boys. I have twin 9-year-olds that are into every sport under the sun, and we get everything from there. So it's a great place for us. They got selection, great prices, extremely helpful staff. I don't know what else you can really be looking for. It's I love walking in that place.
I love it too. I was in there recently. They even had a little March Madness section. If you're a big basketball fan, then they have a whole area for you there with all apparel from many, many different schools. I asked the lady, she said they had over 50 schools represented in apparel there. And they had an NFL section, they had a rugby section, a pickleball section, and everything else. They have a little golf swing meter that they can actually test your golf swing, and it's just such a cool place. And they're really helpful, really friendly. They have all the
Mhm.
equipment and shoes and other things that you would need. So definitely check out Academy Sports or academy.com for your sporting goods and apparel needs. Check out Academy Sports, and we'll see you next time.
Check them out.
All right. Well, welcome to another episode of the Sports Guys. Really glad you're with us tonight. Tonight, we have been so excited about this episode. And why? Because there's nothing like March Madness. It's the top tournament, the top sporting event in the world, in my opinion, in terms of being the craziest, the most unpredictable. The term for tonight's episode and the theme overall is bracketology. Bracketology is supposed to be the science of trying to pick this crazy bracket. And as we found, Rob, over the years, and you can admit this, that it is not a science. It is more art than
Yeah.
science. How you doing,
It's
Robbie?
so, oh, I'm doing great. This is so fun. What we're about to head into here is just incredible. I love it.
There's just nothing like it. I mean, we've spent some of the years in Vegas, which was just a total blast to see, 68 sports franchises, all with hope, walking around in their
Mhm.
sweatshirts, really hoping their team's going to do well. And then, of course, many of them are out on the first weekend. But Um, what do you think about this term bracketology? Is it even possible to be good at this? Is it a total guess? Sometimes the people that win the office pool are people that just pick because they like the colors. What is the science of bracketology?
I think it's a convergence of where educated guesses meets luck. You can get good at it because you make good assumptions on. I've been hearing some of these teams that have played 4 games in 4 days. They're not going to play very well. I mean, they're
Yeah.
tired. They're going to run out of gas by game two. So, assuming that they're going to lose soon is probably a good assumption. So I do think there's a certain skill to it, but it's kind of like poker. If all you have is skill, you're not taking into account the cards. And so sometimes you're just going to get beaten with better cards. So there's a luck element and a skill element that comes together. And I think generally speaking, the people who tend to be pretty good at this have both of those things going. You can have pure blind luck, like at the office pool, and just pick based on colors of jerseys or whatever, but I don't think that's going to consistently get you very consistent results where you could be on ESPN giving out your advice, stuff like that.
You also have the one and done nature of the NCAA tournament, which makes it even more exciting and more unpredictable.
Yeah.
And that's why they call it madness. Whereas, like in the NBA, in a 7 game series, the better team's going to win 95% of the time. They're going to win 4 out of 7 games. So
Yeah.
you don't get that in the NCAA tournament. You can have the number one seed lose to a 16 seed, which has happened twice, because in both cases, the 16 team was just unconscious in shooting. They just could not miss. And that's the thing you can't control. This is a 6 game gauntlet to the championship. And most of these teams are going to have one or two off shooting nights. And the question is, can they get enough inside? Can they get enough defense to survive the other team who could be hot?
Sometimes when you go cold shooting, you need to do a few things. You need a lockdown defense to hold the other team from scoring, to keep the lead from going higher, obviously. And then you also need to do some other things, like maybe you're a really good outside shooting team, but you're missing. So you need to go to the hole and get fouls and get the other team kind of off their game and get their best player in foul trouble and take it inside, get points in different ways. You have to be able to overcome the adversity you're going to run into. You might be down by 6 points with 18 seconds left, and you got to believe you're going to get 2 threes, and um,
You'll
that's how
notice the
this
best
tournament is.
teams, that's the best teams who win the championship. Connecticut won 2 years in a row. And the reason is they could go inside, outside. They had
Yeah.
an inside presence. If they were
It's what you and
full
I talk about all the time,
all the time.
driving to work throughout March Madness. We're always talking about inside outside game. If all you have is inside game and you can't shoot outside, then you're gonna get stopped at some point. If all you have is outside game, all you can hit is threes, you're gonna go cold and you're gonna be dead in the water. So you're really hoping to have some guys that can do all of it, especially specialists who are 3-point specialists, guys that are really going good at going inside, defenders. So
Yep, totally agree. One of the biggest complaints we have as Cavaliers fans, Virginia Cavaliers, that is, and we've been complaining about it for a long time, is that on the nights where we're cold shooting, we lose because we
right.
haven't had the inside presence for a number of years now. And the really, really great teams, the Auburns, the Connecticut's, the Michigan States, those teams that are really good, Florida this year, Duke, they're able to go inside when they can't score outside. And it's just as simple as that. You've got to be able to win in multiple different ways.
I think there is something to the Ken Pom ratings, which is basically he analyzes out of 100 possessions, what your offensive efficiency versus your defensive efficiency is, and then he gives you a number. And then the higher the number, that means your offense is this much better than their ability to score on you. I think that's a pretty good indicator, generally speaking, of how it's going to go. And this year there are 6 um, teams in the top 20 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. So I believe that the national champion is going to come out of the 6 teams that are in the Ken Pom top. So I think it's going to be Duke, Auburn, Houston, Florida, Tennessee, or Iowa State. Those are the 6 that are in the top 20 in offensive and defensive efficiency. And I think it makes a lot of sense that that will carry you far enough to make it through the gauntlet. Um,
And this is why I do think you're right. It is an educated guess. It
mhm.
is a research guess. The people that are really good at this do a lot of research, deep research.
Oh,
You
yeah.
did a great job researching those 6 teams, and those are the teams that are the most likely to win. There was a while there, even when Virginia won its national championship, there was a 30-year stretch where nobody won the championship without being in the top 20 in defensive efficiency. It
Mhm.
didn't happen for 30 years. And so, there are predictors like that that are very helpful.
Yeah. But if you're in the offense and defensive efficiency, you have a legitimate shot at having an off shooting night, but being able to lock down the other team and keeping it low scoring. If you are a high scoring team, but you're good on defense, you can keep them to a medium level where they're never really in contention of knocking you off. Because all the lesser team is really trying to do is keep it close and try and squeak out a win at the end.
I watched Michigan score almost 90 points 2 games in a row in the Big Ten tournament. And then
Mhm.
in the final, they scored 59 and barely squeaked it out. And they did it with gut wrenching defense. That's how they
Mhm.
won that game. And, you see situations like BYU where they score 96 one day and beat Iowa State. And then the next day they scored 52 and they got blown out by 20 points. So,
Yeah,
that kind
that's
of
the difference.
inconsistency just kills you in the tournament. You can't
I
have that in the
watched
tournament.
that and it was pretty impressive. First of all, Iowa State was shooting 59% and losing. So that's amazing field goal percentage. That's how high scoring that was back and forth. There was no defense anywhere to be found. But then when BYU had to go forward into a situation where it was better defense, you know, they saw what that was all about. So
That's right. That's right.
yeah, it's really
Well, what are
exciting though, because there's no golden rule. There's no team that's so much better than anyone else. I thought most of the year Auburn was that, and then they sputtered so hard down the stretch. I literally believe now there's no team that's so much better than anyone else. Everyone's beatable. And usually that's true, but this year it seems even more true because I don't think there's a real strong favorite.
I agree with that. I think there's a couple of strong favorites this time, and we'll talk about those when we get into the deep dive. Do you agree with my statement that there's no tournament that's anything like this in any sport, and that
Yeah, this is
all the others are chasing it? They're all trying to
I've
get
heard
there.
it in many, many different places from a lot of commentators and sports people that the hardest tournament to win in the world is the NCAA basketball tournament, and then second is the Stanley Cup.
I agree.
So, you can argue anything you want, PGA, Masters, whatever. You could come up with some really good arguments for other things, but nonetheless, these are probably considered the hardest championship to win, at least
And it's
in
because
America.
of the one and done nature of it. Okay, even baseball doesn't have one and done.
Mhm.
So you have one and done
Yep.
nature of it. You have a 6-game gauntlet, of which 1 or 2 games you're probably not going to play well,
Right.
and your opponent's going to be hot. So you have that problem, and then you have those two things, and then you have the situation where there's more and more parity all the time in college basketball. Even the mid majors have a chance to upset.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so difficult to win. And a
Especially
lot of
in
these coaches who get one championship, they'll retire with one championship. That's all they get
yeah.
because it's that hard to win.
Especially with NIL, where you have players going to BYU for money. BYU hasn't been traditionally too much of a basketball powerhouse, but they're buying players on the open market because they have money, and it's pretty wild to see some of the top players in the country going to BYU for money, and then they love the school. So
But don't you think every other sport is chasing the excitement that March Madness
absolutely
brings? I
right.
mean,
Every
football's trying to
single
get there.
every college sport at least is trying to replicate March Madness. Football, the 12-team playoff was absolutely
Lacrosse,
trying to copy.
football,
Lacrosse, I
lacrosse,
mean, you
all of
name
them.
it. Every college sport is trying to copy this, and many of the professional sports are trying to put in elements of it as well. So that's
That's
how
right.
great this tournament is.
It's true. Very true. Well, let's go take a look at what we got for tonight. All right, so this is our Bracketology March Madness 2025 preview show, our episode 54. You see some great pictures there of some of the big players we're going to be seeing in this tournament. Houston, Duke, Auburn, and Michigan State all represented there. And of course, the coach from Auburn, who's been kind of lined up for Coach of the Year most of the season. A couple of great March Madness logos there. So, what are you most excited about week one? Because to me, week one is the best part of the tournament.
It's so hilarious to watch everybody's brackets explode and the big upsets, and everyone's waiting for the 16 versus 1 or 15 versus 2 crazy game that you can hear people screaming in your office down the hall that are clearly watching the game instead of working. It's just a lot of fun, and
Yeah, nobody
I'm so
really works
excited.
on Thursday and Friday this week. They just don't.
Yeah,
Let's be
everyone's
honest.
got one eyeball on the games. Um, and a 6 versus 11, you think that's an upset, but statistically speaking, 50% of those teams lose.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
um,
And
that's not really an upset.
you'll see it happen again this time. You'll see some twos go down. You'll see some threes go down.
Yeah.
It'll happen again. And what I noticed in all of the brackets we're about to show you guys, including celebrity pickers, everybody, and Rob and I do the same, picks way too many favorites.
Mhm.
And it's because you don't really know which guy is going to come up and bite the other one. You just don't know. And so you pick way too many favorites, and then you end up looking at your bracket on Sunday night after the first weekend, and you're just decimated. It's about half your bracket's gone already.
Yeah.
But
But that's because
are there any techniques to avoid that? Like, what can you do as a fan to try to make your bracket a little more right sized?
yes. So there are so many factors you can take into account. First of all, you can look at what was their path to get here. If they had a bunch of games in a row, they're going to be tired. If they don't have a deep roster, go look at the roster scoring. Some of these teams have 5 players score a bunch of points and almost nobody on their bench getting much minutes and 0 points. So
And then you got
you get one
injury.
of those guys in foul trouble, they're going to go down. So those teams aren't deep enough to win the whole thing. There's a whole bunch of other things you can look at. You can look at the Ken Pom ratings. Do they have the ability to win different ways? Keeping down their opponent from scoring too much. Can they turn it on scoring wise? Can they score in different ways? Have they been battle tested? And are they hot going into the tournament? Sometimes that's a factor. So,
And do they have a key injury? Like, you remember one year
Yeah.
Virginia had Justin Anderson get hurt right before the tournament. Another year we had DeAndre Hunter get hurt right before the tournament.
DeAndre Hunter got hurt against Clemson, and the next game was UMBC, and Virginia went down because they were so used to DeAndre Hunter being the spark. And that can just happen. And if you know, I told everybody in my work that don't pick Virginia to be in the Final Four because they're going to lose without DeAndre Hunter, even though they were a number 1 seed and a lot of people were picking them to go all the way, et cetera. Now, granted, the next year, DeAndre was healthy and they won the whole thing. So, but that tells you a lot. How are they coming into this tournament? What was their path? What is their health level? What is their depth level? Can they score on you in a bunch of different ways? Do they have the ability to defeat a team multiple ways? That team can go a long way. There's a skill level based on all these different factors. And if you take it all into account, you can usually predict most of the games. I think anybody who picks all of them is just very reliant on skill and luck together. There's no way to do it without luck.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ken Pom. You mentioned how many games in a row they played. You know, you have a team come in who's played 4 or 5 games in 6 days. They will be really tired. They have dead legs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors you can look at. There's no doubt about it. It's not just a random pick. You're exactly right. It's an educated guess. That's what it is.
Yep.
So, yeah, you put it really well there, what the science of bracketology really is. So let's take a look at the bracket. This is it right here. You got the Southwest, East, and Midwest. We'll go over a breakdown of each of these brackets here in a second. But what was your overall impression when you looked at it for the first time and kind of the path to San Antonio?
I didn't really pick up this year on, wow, that's an easier path than the others. I didn't. I think it was pretty well spread out, to be honest with you.
I agree.
I have felt in the past in both football this year and in previous basketball brackets that there was clearly a region that was easier than the others. And I didn't feel that this year. When I looked at it, it was pretty balanced.
I would agree with that. I had this exact same impression that this was a really balanced way that they did this. I think they did a great job.
Yeah.
I think the biggest controversy coming into this tournament was North Carolina, whether they should have been in or out. They were one of the last ones in. Actually, they told us that they were the last one in, essentially the 68th team. And there was a lot of controversy there, mainly because they're a big brand. Of course, you know, NCAA would want them in the tournament. The head of the selection committee is the athletic director of North Carolina, Bubba Cunningham. But there was a case for them to be in as well. I do think that the fact that they were 1-12 against the quad ones was kind of an issue, and the fact that they had a really good quad 2 record kind of saved them. But there's a real debate there. But other than that, I think when you look at the selection that was done here in this bracket, I think it was done very, very well.
I think so. And I didn't really buy into some of the arguments, although I did understand the uproar, the outrage uproar. But if you analyze it a little bit, there are many factors that go into the selection of these teams that are on the bubble, right? So if you look at just this factor, then maybe a team looks like it got cheated. And then if you look at another factor, it looks like they made the right choice. So it really came down to overall impressions of how teams finished, how teams played overall, how teams played against quad ones, how teams played against quad twos, threes. Did they win games they should have? Did they get better as the season went on? I feel like North Carolina got in there for a couple of reasons. Could I negate the brand element? No. I think it's the number 1 brand in college sports. and therefore you want them to be represented in your tournament. It gives your tournament some gravitas if all the big boys are there. So that's number one.
But if you're Boise State or you're Indiana, then obviously you're very upset, and you can
You're very
understand
upset.
why. You can understand why.
Of course. In fact, the West Virginia governor is threatening a lawsuit against the committee, and I don't think he has a case, but you have serious hurt feelings here. And a lot of people are saying it's not fair. But in the end, I think it's fine that North Carolina went in. Number one, I think ACC deserves four teams overall at least, maybe more. I think it was definitely a criticism of the ACC having only 4 teams this year. Second, I think Carolina played pretty well down the stretch. They played really well against Duke. They played them tough. And then they had a number of factors that worked in their favor. Do I think it was a runaway decision where it was an easy one to make? No. Do I think there was a lot of bias involved? I really don't think so. But I understand the arguments that say that there was.
These are the toughest calls of all. When you get down to 66, 67, and 68, those are just brutal. And I don't really think anybody likes those decisions in the committee.
Agree.
Matter of fact, Bubba Cunningham took himself out of the decision, which was the right thing.
All people who are parties involved in the decision for their team have to remove themselves. So I don't think the case cannot be made that it was just straight bias. If there was a little bit of bias because maybe they liked Bubba Cunningham and they didn't want to disappoint him, maybe I've heard that argument. I'm not buying it. So I think that's a little microcosm of the fringes. And I think you're going to have that a lot in football too. You know, the 13th team trying to get into the playoffs is going to be upset. And I get that. But at the end of the day, Carolina could have won more games to make it more solid. But, you know, the other teams that didn't get in, Ohio State's and all the teams that got bypassed, Indiana, West Virginia, those teams, they should have won more games to make it so easy to put them into the tournament. They lost a lot of games that were inexplicable, and therefore they don't really have much of a gripe, you know? So I'm not a North Carolina homer, but at the same time, I'm totally comfortable with them getting in based on their criteria were just about as strong as the West Virginia ones or the Indiana ones.
Would it shock you if North Carolina wins tomorrow night in the play-in game?
No.
And then goes on to like the Sweet 16 or something? Would that shock you?
I think they will win tomorrow night's game. I don't know about past that. They're going to be pretty chippy. You know, they're being told that you guys shouldn't be in there, you shouldn't be here. You guys didn't do enough. They're going to be a little salty, I think.
I think so too.
They're going to be us against the world and coming out swinging.
I got them going to the Sweet 16. So I think that they're going to be so chippy and want to improve so much, and they played so much better towards the end of the year that they're not anything like a Final Four team or anything like that. They just don't have that kind of talent. But so here's my question to you and to the viewers tonight. Who is the best 1-2 punch out of the 4 regions? Is it Auburn, Michigan State? Is it Florida, St. John's? Is it Duke, Alabama? Or is it Houston, Tennessee? Like, what do you think is the toughest 1-2 punch out of these 4 regions?
Florida, St. John's, probably.
You think it's Florida, St. John's?
I do.
Okay.
But honestly, the Alabama one and the Tennessee one are pretty good too. So
I think it's Duke, Alabama.
There's no slouch region.
I think it's Duke, Alabama. I think those two, that's really tough because they're going to end up lining up, trying to go into the Final Four.
Yeah. And I think Auburn sputtered a little down the stretch, but don't forget that's been the most powerful team all year. I think they could put it in another gear and start wiping teams out.
I mean, Tennessee's no joke either. So I don't know.
Tennessee's awesome.
It's pretty well balanced here. I agree.
They're one of the best offensive teams in the country, and they're very solid.
I think Florida St. John's is number 2, but I think for me it's Duke, Alabama. I think that's a really tough.
Fair. I mean, you can easily make the case.
Yeah.
But that's my point. Is there's no region that's easy. I wouldn't call the Auburn,
Michigan State.
Yeah, that's not a joke. I mean,
and
Auburn,
Iowa State's
you want to play Auburn?
Iowa
you know
State
what Auburn could do to you if they play well?
You know who else is in
every
there?
single team in this tournament.
You know who else they have in that bracket? They got Texas A&M in that bracket. You can't
I
discount
know.
them. You got Louisville in that bracket. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. Marquette's in there.
Creighton.
So, yeah, there's a lot of good teams. Absolutely.
Yeah. These teams could knock off a higher seed, no problem.
Let's look at the South region. We were just mentioning Auburn, Michigan State, but let's talk about some of the lower seeds. You got Iowa State in there. You got Texas A&M. You have a really strong Michigan team who won the Big Ten tournament
Mhm.
and deserved to do so. Played really well down the stretch. You
Yeah.
have Ole Miss, who had a solid year, is in there. You have Louisville, who came on really strong in the ACC. Creighton is not a team you really want to play. You have a really well-coached Marquette team in there. So what do you think overall about the balance of this bracket?
I think this is the weakest of the four, but it's so much better than the weak ones of the past. So I think Auburn can turn it on and be a nightmare for anybody. Louisville's, really playing solid. Creighton's solid.
Those
Michigan,
8-9 games in all the brackets are going to be really good. That's going to be a
yeah.
great game. Louisville, Creighton.
Michigan's had a really nice season. A&M's a powerhouse. Um, I wouldn't sleep on an angry Carolina team.
Iowa State could go Sweet
Iowa
16,
State,
Elite 8. Yep.
they can score.
Mhm.
And Michigan State. So Michigan State's always good.
Yeah.
This is not a joke conference, and I think it's the weakest of the four.
Yeah. No, that's right.
In soccer, you'd call it group of death is the really, really tough ones. I wouldn't call this group of death, but I would say it's very solid, tough to come out of this one.
And I hope Texas A&M doesn't sleep on Yale, because that's the kind of team that can come up and bite you in a 4-13 game.
Those are the wipe out your brackets losses that happen
That's right. It happens every single year.
every year.
A Yale or a Princeton or somebody like that will beat somebody. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, if you go chalk, you're out just as fast as
That's
people
right.
who are picking incorrectly on upsets. So
This is the bracket I think is the best bracket in terms of balance from top to bottom. You've got Duke and Alabama. We already mentioned them. You've got Wisconsin, who's playing really, really well. Arizona is not an easy out. Oregon might have been the most surprising team in the Big Ten this year. They were fantastic from beginning to end. They're a really good team. You have BYU. You saw what they can do. They put up 96 on Iowa State. You have St. Mary's.
Liberty's 10th best scoring defense.
Yeah,
Not a joke.
Liberty. St. Mary's is really good. They won their conference.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, Baylor. I don't really want to play Baylor. Do
St.
you?
Mary's is 5th best defense.
So this is a very tough bracket right here.
Yeah.
Whoever emerges from this and goes to the Final Four is going to be battle tested. That's for sure.
Alabama averages 91.1 points a game.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They played so well down the stretch.
Yeah.
Alabama. So I'm excited about this bracket. I really am.
It's a good one.
By the way, this one is in Raleigh, so that's going to be really exciting.
I know.
For you guys.
Let's go.
Here in the Raleigh area. See all this great basketball. All right, Midwest region, you got Houston and Tennessee. We mentioned both of those teams could go Final Four. I mean, they both have Final Four caliber. But you have Kentucky in this bracket, who's really good. You have Purdue, had a great year. You have Clemson, who had a fantastic ACC season. They almost won the ACC. Illinois was really good. UCLA is a really good team. Georgia's no joke. High Point, a lot of people are saying that Purdue needs to be on upset
I'm rooting
alert.
for High Point.
Yeah, because Purdue needs to be on upset alert because High Point is a really good team. I really hope Purdue takes them seriously.
Yeah.
And then you have in the play-in game Texas and Xavier, who are two pretty powerful programs. So what are your thoughts about the Midwest?
This is a very nice, solid bracket. There's no patsies on there. No easy team.
Right.
McNeese is going to be tough, Georgia's got athletes. I'm not sure about SIU Edwardsville. That's the only one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they got some players. I don't know, but
even Utah State, they said a lot of people are picking Utah State over UCLA. They're kind of an upset team. I don't know about Troy. I haven't really seen them this year, but Troy, McNeese, some of these lesser schools could come up and bite. But High Point, I think, is the one everyone's watching.
Yeah, I'm rooting for High Point.
Able to pull it off. We'll see what happens.
A friend of mine's daughter goes there, and they're super excited that they're in.
I bet. This is going to be a good bracket. All right, final bracket is the West. You got Florida, and St. John's. Those are your top two teams. We've talked a little bit about them. Both are really excellent. Both could go to the Final Four. Texas Tech had a fantastic season. They're playing UNCW, which is my daughter's school. So that's going to be kind of cool to watch that one. Maryland, you mentioned them before the broadcast, how great they've been playing. But they're playing one of the true upset alert teams. That's Grand Canyon. They've been playing really well. And there's probably half the brackets now are picking Grand Canyon as kind of a sexy upset pick.
I wouldn't pick them against Maryland, but yeah.
We'll see.
But
We'll see.
I think Maryland wipes them out.
And then you got Memphis that some people are thinking can go really far, maybe Final Four type of thing. But then they're playing a really upset-minded Colorado State team who's pretty darn good. You got the defending champs UConn. They're sitting at 8, playing Oklahoma. It's a pretty darn good team. And in this bracket, you also got Kansas. So, and then Drake. Drake is the other team that a lot of people think might kind of make a Sweet 16 type run. So
and
thoughts
Missouri is a scoring powerhouse.
They are. They're really, really solid. One of the many SEC teams we got in this bracket. So what are your thoughts about the West?
Very solid. I thought it was the number one bracket, but I could see the Duke one too. Very good brackets. They did a nice job of mixing up not just talent, but also regional. They wanted to make sure that teams from the same conference didn't run into each other too early.
We didn't mention Arkansas, but Arkansas beat Auburn this year. They beat Georgia this year, and they beat Alabama this year. So they have all the capability in the world to pull an upset here.
Yeah.
So going to be a really good bracket. I'm excited about it. So looking at the conference breakdown, this is pretty astounding to me. SEC gets 14 teams in. The previous record was 11 in the Big East. Big 10 gets 8. Big 12 gets 7. Big East with 5. ACC with 4. So that's 3 years in a row the ACC only gets 4 in. So it's really kind of sad that this is the new parity in the ACC. We used to get 8 or 9.
Well, I think football NIL money is trickling into basketball, and the SEC has the most money from football, so it's starting to trickle down into their other sports.
ACC used to get 8 or 9, and that was before we had Stanford, Cal, and SMU. You now have an expanded ACC with 3 more teams, and you're still getting 4, which is, I don't know. I think the conference has got to really look at itself in the mirror here and figure out what they're doing.
It needs to learn how to compete in the NIL world.
That's right.
And it's not competing right now.
So what are your thoughts about this NCAA record, 14 teams getting in?
I can't blame them. I mean, those teams are all loaded.
We just went through all the brackets, and about 2/3 of them are SEC teams. So what a brutal conference that is.
Yeah.
My goodness.
I know. What's amazing is how many of them have winning records. Like, who's losing?
Yeah, I know. Even like a team like Vanderbilt can beat you, and they're towards
the bottom 4 teams must be 0 and,
yeah,
and
it's like
45.
Mississippi State and some of those teams. I don't know. It's really impressive. All you can do is just tip your hat and realize the SEC is completely loaded with NIL money. And but it's not just NIL. They're also recruiting better than all
it's not just NIL. They take their sports very seriously. They have really incredible workout facilities. They're usually in the South where it's warm. It's not hard to recruit. They have big schools with huge football programs that it's easy to attract athletes of other sports when you get the football rolling.
Do you think that's true? I was going to ask you about that. Do you think part of your theory is that some of these basketball players want to go to a school that has a good football program as well?
Yeah.
Like go to Alabama, go to Auburn.
Yeah. In our last podcast, the episode, the rugby one, the coach that we had on, he coached at Clemson, and that was when they were winning national titles. And he said it was pretty easy to get guys to go play rugby at Clemson because they were good in football.
Right. That's right.
I mean, he basically said so.
And it's the same thing with the Big Ten here with 8 bids because they've got great football programs. So,
Same thing.
Hey, why don't you come to Michigan? Why don't you come to Ohio State?
Yeah, Big Ten has tons of football money. Look at the top 2 conferences. I mean,
That's right.
It's starting to get more and more lopsided.
I never thought I'd see the ACC in 5th place in basketball. I just
Not in
never.
basketball, but that's where we are. Is
Yeah,
the football's not good enough, not making enough money to carry into the collectives.
that's right. That's exactly right. Some of the headlines coming out about the SEC: how has the SEC become college basketball's most dominant conference? We mentioned the money, the NIL, but what else do you think it is? We mentioned football. Is it the
It's
South good weather? Is it,
Yeah, it's
what are
not
some,
hard to recruit to where it's warm and there's good football and people go crazy about the sports. Um, SEC has good schools where you can get your degree. Um,
yeah, I
Usually
mean, Auburn's
legendary coaches.
a really good school. I mean, you go there and you get a
Yeah,
good education. So if you don't make the
yeah.
NBA,
Most of them are good schools, you know.
mhm.
I think the ACC is academically better, but that doesn't get your kid to go there if they can offer you $1 million and ACC is offering 100,000.
Right. SEC dominates men's NCAA tournament top 16 seeds. So that was another
Mhm.
thing. If you just look at the top 16 alone, they had 9 of the 16, which is just incredible. It's total domination.
Mhm.
And then SEC sets record with 14 of 16 teams in the NCAA tournament, which, I mean, it's basically the whole conference win except for 2.
Yeah.
So any other further thoughts about this conference breakdown? Is this what we're going to see going forward, or is it going to
I don't
rebound?
know. I think things will all adjust around once they put in place some salary cap stuff, and there will be some leveling of the playing field going forward. Just it hasn't happened yet. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're gonna find out, but this year it's very much dominated by 2 big conferences. That is for sure. All right, looking at our top 10 players in the tournament, our first one is Cooper Flagg from Duke. You can see he had a fantastic year. He's been signaling and rumoring that he's likely to come back to Duke next year. He's been offered a $5 million one-year contract, essentially, from the boosters of Duke. But whether he comes back or not, had probably the greatest freshman year ever of any freshman in every category. Thoughts about Cooper?
I mean, just he was leading his team in every category. He came in with a lot of hype, and he's actually better than the hype. He's an incredible athlete. He's 6'7", 8", something like that. Very tall. He's perfect for the NBA. They just need to put a little weight on him. And
You know what Shire said about Cooper Flagg, and I thought this was true, but I was glad to hear him say it. He said he makes everyone on the floor better.
right,
He's kind of like LeBron in that way. LeBron makes everybody else better, and Cooper does
yeah. I
that.
mean, he's
He
leading his team in
elevates
assists. He's leading in rebounds. Like he does all the work.
he elevates everyone else's game when he's on the floor, and so that's what you want in an NBA player as well, of course. So our number 2 player, and these guys have gone back and forth, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. There have been times where Broom from Auburn has been considered the top player this year, but you can see he had an incredible year as well in the best conference. Any thoughts about Mr. Broom?
He's an incredible player. He's gonna. I mean, these two are the best players in the country.
There's no question.
He's gonna be a great pro, and
We don't know which one's going to win player of the year. I think they're both deserving. If they could have a tie, I would say they should probably both win it. That's the way I look at it.
I think Broom might win it if Flag can't really execute well in the tournament because of his ankle.
Although it's supposed to be regular season only
I know,
award. But
but I think they're that close. I think any little thing they can hang their hat on.
right.
But maybe Flag wins it because he was better during the season. I'm not sure.
We'll see.
These two are very deserving of the recognition they're getting.
No question. Third best player is Cameron Jones from Marquette. Really excellent player. You can see his numbers are pretty close to the top 2. And he's just a dominant force in his conference and for his team. So I'm really excited to watch him play. I haven't been able to see him much this
Yeah,
year. And I'm excited to see him in the tournament and see how he does. Really excellent player, going to be a great pro one day. Braden Smith from Purdue, we know him. He had a fantastic tournament last year when they got all the way to the final. And then he's been clearly the leader for Purdue this year, and he was the Big Ten Player of the Year in the Big Ten. So that was pretty cool award that he got there. Thoughts about Braden?
just real good shooter. He's a good leader on the floor. They're lucky to have him.
It's going to be
I'm
a
not
really
sure
good.
Purdue's a great team this year, but he's a great player.
Mm-hmm. He's going to be a really good point guard at the next level.
Yeah.
Really solid, very smart.
Yeah, he's
Good
got
forward.
some beef to him. He already can
Really good
physically.
floor general. He also raises everybody on the floor, just like Cooper does.
That's right.
So Mark Sears from Alabama had an amazing tournament last year and really kind of splashed onto the scene and has been just as good this year. Been really dominant in the SEC. He's one of the reasons I think Alabama's going to have a really deep run in this tournament. He's a really, really incredible player. Definitely watch out for him if you guys get to see some Alabama games.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fun to watch. So number 6 is PJ Haggerty from Memphis. He's a fantastic player. You'll notice right away his really crazy haircut that he's famous for. But he just does it all. I mean, scoring and rebounding and assists and scrambling for the ball for 50-50 balls. And he just impacts the game in so many different ways. So he's a fun player to watch. Chaz Lanier from Tennessee is their best player from a really solid Tennessee team.
Oh, yeah.
Really great SEC player, made a big impact this year. Bennett Sturts from Drake has gotten a lot of notoriety going into this tournament. A lot of people are picking, even though they're the number 11 seed in their bracket, a lot of people are thinking Drake might win a game or two and get to the Sweet 16. If they do, it's going to be because of this guy. He's just really, really solid in every aspect of his game. Hunter Dickinson, we've been watching him for a while. Used to be at Michigan, now at Kansas. One of the better big men in college basketball. Is going to be a fantastic pro next year. What are your thoughts about him and as he closes his career out?
Yeah, it was funny until recently. I forgot that he wasn't already in the pros. I forgot that he transferred because they gave him a good payday. I think he's a very, very good big man. Great talent. I wish my team had him. I think he's been around a long time, so he's got experience. He's not going to be freaked out by the pressure. He's going to be ready for it. And I think Kansas got lucky getting him.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. It'll be fun to watch him close it out and see if Kansas can do something this tournament. Final guy is LJ Cryer from Houston. He's been a great player for 2 years now. He actually made a name for himself in last year's tournament as well. Has been a really solid player for Houston. They've got a really good squad. They're very deep. A lot of people picking them to go to the Final Four as well. So a lot of fun players here to watch as we enter the tournament. So looking at the first couple brackets we're going to show you guys, this one's from Ricky O'Donnell from CBS Sports. You can see there in the South, he's got Auburn and Michigan State playing in the final of that bracket. And he's got Auburn going to the Final Four in the South. In the West, he's got Florida playing St. John's with Florida advancing. He's got Duke beating Wisconsin. And then he's got Gonzaga shocking Tennessee and going to the Final Four. And then his final is Florida and Duke, and he's got Duke winning it all. So what are your thoughts about this overall kind of Elite Eight that he's got here?
I mean, it can certainly happen. Gonzaga's got a lot of talent, great coach. I think Duke should handle things because they're a very talented squad. Auburn's had an amazing year. Florida is amazing.
He's got Drake going to the Sweet 16, which is something I thought might happen. He's got Cal San Diego beating Michigan, which is a pretty big upset. So he's got a couple upsets in there, but overall, it's looking like he's going with the big boys.
It's conceivable.
Other than Gonzaga, yeah. So looking at the next one here, Ethan Bach from cbbbracketology.com. He's got in his Final Four, Texas A&M against Duke and Florida against Houston. And then he's got Florida Duke in the final as well, but he has Florida coming out on top instead of Duke. So any thoughts about his bracket?
That looks a little closer to mine, but no.
He also has Drake advancing a couple rounds. He also has Colorado State getting an upset over Memphis, which is a big one. He has a couple other upsets along the way. But, looks pretty similar to some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Looked like he got Clemson going to the Sweet 16. That's a pretty cool call there. I
Mm-hmm.
thought about that because I think
Yeah, a
Clemson
lot of people are picking Clemson.
they're playing really well right now.
Mm-hmm.
A&M in the Final Four, that's the first bracket I've seen of that, but they are also playing really well. I would not be shocked if they found a way to get all the way to upsetting Auburn, knocking them
Yeah,
off.
I haven't seen a lot of A&M getting that far, but they're playing the kind of ball that could do some upsets and get you there. So
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The next guy is Michael Cohen from Fox Sports. He's got Michigan State knocking off Auburn. He's got Florida beating St. John's. He's got Duke beating BYU. That means BYU gets all the way to the Elite Eight. I guess their shooting would have to be really good to make that happen. And then he's got Houston beating Tennessee into the Final Four. And then he's got Florida Duke also in the final, just like everybody else. And he's got Duke winning it. So I'm seeing a trend here, Robbie. I'm seeing a lot of Duke, Florida in the final, but then disagreement on who's going to win it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can relate to that.
Yeah, thoughts about this bracket? He also has UC San Diego beating Michigan, which is interesting. I wonder why so many people are calling that upset.
I don't know.
It's really interesting.
That's St. John's.
I'm surprised more people aren't picking Michigan State to get to the final, because I would think that there'd be some people that would think that with that amazing Hall of Fame coach that they'd be able to get there. But they do have in the Final Four in this bracket. So John Fanta, also from Fox Sports, he has also Michigan State, Florida in one bracket. And he has Duke Houston also in the other bracket, just like his colleague. But in this case, he's got Florida playing Houston in the final. He has Houston knocking off Duke in the Final Four, which certainly is possible. He also has Florida winning it. So one of the Fox Sports guys said Duke, and he says Florida. So thoughts about Houston making it all the way to the final?
I think Duke might be susceptible if they don't get their two injured players back. One is a defensive stopper, and one's Cooper Flagg, who's probably the best player in the country. If you lose those two and they're not able to come back effectively, you're susceptible to being beaten, even though you have a great roster with Concanupal and all these guys, Proctor, great players. They can win. They can beat most teams. But the idea that they're going to run it just because, they have a great roster and two of their best players, no other team could really survive two of their best players.
My bracket's very similar to this guy's because I've got Michigan State making a deep run. I have Alabama making a deep run.
Mm-hmm.
I have Duke making a deep run, and I have Florida making a deep run. So mine's very similar to this.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of the big people like St. John's losing when he has them losing. So this is I think it's pretty solid, this overall bracket.
Yeah. Yep.
This was the funniest one I saw. This was the Dave & Buster's employees in San Antonio, Texas. There was 24 of them who filled it out together, and they made some really funny upset picks, as you can see.
I like Kent.
Yeah, so they had Auburn getting to the Final Four, beating Iowa State in the Elite Eight. They had Memphis.
I mean, that could happen.
Memphis and Kansas in another bracket. That's certainly possible. That's not impossible. So you have Auburn, Memphis in one game, and then on the other side you got Wisconsin knocking off Duke, and you have the most unlikely of unlikely. You have Kent beating Illinois, Tennessee, and Houston. I wonder what the odds of that would be.
It's not likely.
So he's got the final is Memphis against Kent, and then they got Memphis.
I love
winning the tournament. So
now that would be a strange TV viewership.
So were you ever part of a restaurant group who all chose together and did a bracket together?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
I don't think so.
The Dave & Buster's bracket.
Yeah.
Taking Memphis.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Drop us a comment, guys, what you think of this funny bracket. And
who else thinks Kent's going to the finals?
Yeah, exactly. And who else thinks Memphis is going to win it, right? Win the whole thing. It'll be interesting. What's funny, Robbie, is they've picked so many upsets here. It's probably the most accurate of all the brackets because there's going to be upsets. We just don't know what they are.
Memphis beating Florida.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But so this is Jalen Milroe. He's the quarterback of Alabama. He's just entered the NFL draft. He's going to be drafted by somebody. He, in one bracket, had Michigan State beating Louisville in the Elite Eight. That means Louisville has a really nice run. He's got St. John's in Florida in another bracket with Florida advancing. He's got his Alabama Crimson Tide, his team, beating Duke, going to the Final Four. And then he's got Houston beating Tennessee to go to the Final Four. So that's his Final Four. Then he's got Florida and Alabama in the final, but he somehow inexplicably picked Florida over his Tide to win the whole thing, which I thought was pretty honest of him,
I think he just didn't want to be a homer.
So what are your thoughts about Jalen Milroe's bracket here?
Interesting.
Do you think the Tide could get there? Think they have the team to do it?
Yes.
I do too.
I think they have a sleeper's chance. They have
They're
a puncher's
incredibly
chance.
athletic. They're incredibly
Yeah.
athletic. The way they played Auburn, I mean, it just showed how they play.
They're the top scoring team in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just surprised he didn't take the final step. Tide champions.
Yeah.
Funny. All right. This one is Ryan McBride. This guy was our 10th subscriber on the channel. How you doing, Ryan? Good to talk to you. He emailed me and asked if we were going to be doing a March Madness show. And if we were, he filled out a bracket and wanted us to include it. So I did. So Ryan, here it is, man. Drop us a comment what you think. He has Auburn beating Michigan State in one bracket. He's got Florida beating St. John's. He's got Wisconsin knocking off Duke. And then he's got Tennessee beating Clemson in the Elite Eight. And then he's got a Florida-Tennessee final with Florida winning it. So what are your thoughts about Ryan's bracket here?
I could see it.
You think Tennessee can get all the way to the final?
Tennessee's legit.
Yeah. And Wisconsin knocking off Duke? Certainly possible.
It's possible. Not likely.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but they're playing
That's
well.
probably the hardest one to believe right there. But
that Florida-Auburn game, if that happened, would be a fantastic semifinal. Oh, my God.
That's going to be one where you want to get a good spot at the bar with some good wings.
and a wheat smoothie.
And a wheat smoothie, and let's go.
And actually, Florida-Michigan State would be a good game, too.
Yeah.
So, well, Ryan, thanks for sending that in, man. Really glad you
thanks, Ryan.
Good
luck to you.
Yeah. So this is my girlfriend, Deb. She is a huge Purdue fan, super fan for Purdue. Was all the way with them last year when they went to the finals. But this year she's got Michigan advancing all the way against Michigan State and advancing to the Final Four. She's got Florida, as you see there in the other bracket. She's got Duke. And then she's got Houston in the Midwest. So those are her Final Four. And then she's got Florida and Duke in the final. And she's got the Duke Blue Devils winning the whole thing. So, Deb, we'll see how you do. I think this is definitely a realistic possibility. What do you think, Robbie, about these Final Four?
Pretty good picks.
Yeah, what do you think of that Michigan State Elite Eight? That'd be a pretty big rivalry battle.
Good rivalry game. Yeah. I could see it.
I have to give her credit for not being a homer and putting Purdue in the final or something like that. She really thought about this and did a great job analyzing. So we'll see how she does. So, Robbie, let's take a look at yours, man. Tell us about your Final Four here. So you got Auburn and Florida, and you got
Auburn,
Duke,
Florida,
and Duke and Tennessee.
And
those
Duke and Tennessee.
Four. What was your thinking about those four?
Well, I think Duke's going to get healthy enough to survive until they get their legs under them. Tennessee's just an awesome team, great offense, really well coached, and they've been coming on for years now to where they're becoming a real powerhouse. Mm-hmm. And then Auburn, I think people are taking them lightly. They've had an incredible season. They sputtered a little coming into this tournament, but I wouldn't want to play them. Mm-hmm. And then,
do you think that they can overcome losing their last four in a row? I mean, they really have not been playing well.
Yeah, they've played some really good teams.
But I'm almost feeling like he might put a chip on their shoulder.
They're going to come in angry. They're getting disrespected by everybody.
Yeah.
And they were dominant all year. They
Mhm.
were the best team in college basketball all year.
That's right. I noticed you have Iowa State advancing a couple of rounds. I know Luke will be
Yeah.
happy about that. Do you have any big upsets here that you're calling a shot on?
Not really. I'm
I saw
really
you had I saw you had UC San Diego beating Michigan. That was an interesting one.
High Point. I'm rooting for.
You had Clemson advancing to the Sweet
Clemson.
16.
I think Clemson might do a nice job.
You had
No
Kentucky
major upsets. Just
make a move. Yeah, it looks like
6 versus 11 is about 50% of the time there's an upset. So
that's right.
that's one you want to focus on whenever. If you see one that looks beatable, then you go for it. Some of the teams are underseeded. A lot of people are saying Louisville is underseeded, so keep an eye on them. If you have an underseeded team, you can really get caught.
No question. This is a good bracket, Robbie. We'll see how you do.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think Florida is going to be too much for everybody when it gets into these later games.
I like Duke, Tennessee too. That's a pretty good call. So let's look at mine here. I've got Michigan State in Florida on my left side of the bracket, and then I've got Alabama making a humongous run up against Houston in the Final Four, and then I've got Alabama getting all the way to the final. I really think they're that athletic and they're playing that well. I also think Auburn is not playing well enough to get all the way to the Final Four. So I've got Michigan State, Florida, Alabama, Houston, and I've got Florida and Alabama, two SEC schools in the final, which would be apropos after this season, how dominant they've been. And I also have Florida winning the whole thing, and that really worries me because about 80% of the people are picking Florida. So that tells me that they're not going to win it. That's just how it works in the tournament. When everyone
I don't
picks
know.
someone.
Sometimes you can have everybody pick the winner, but there's bracket busters all over the place. Losses.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. So I've got Michigan losing early as well. And I've got a couple of other big upsets I picked along the way. But for the most part, as you can see, I think it's going to be mostly big programs dominating all the way to the Final Four. I have Clemson making a nice little Sweet 16 run. So I'm really excited about this tournament. I think it's going to be really fantastic to watch. I also have Grand Canyon knocking off Maryland. I know that you said that you didn't think that's possible, but I think it might happen.
I think Maryland's a tough team. You don't want to play Maryland, not in this
And
tournament.
I also see Drake going to the Sweet 16 as an 11 seed. I think Drake is really, really solid. So I'm excited, man. We'll see how we do.
Yep.
All right, so this is our subscriber challenge of the week, guys. This is your chance to drop us a comment. We really want you to tell us who will win the college basketball national championship in 2025. You see all the leading contenders there: Duke, Auburn, Houston, Michigan State, Purdue, Marquette, Florida, Texas Tech, Crimson Tide, Tennessee, St. John's, and Iowa State, or others. It could be somebody who's not on this list. So drop us a comment who you think it's going to be. As you know, Rob and I both have chosen Florida to win the whole thing. So we really look forward to you guys telling us who you think is going to win it. All right. Well, Robbie, final thoughts, man, as we head into Thursday and we head into the bracket that we're about to face.
If you look at the KenPom ratings, Duke is first, and with 38.16 to the positive. That means in a theoretical world, they'll beat every team that they play by 38 points if they were all equal strength. Florida's next, Houston's next, Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, all the SEC teams at the top there except for Duke. And Houston. So I think there's a consensus forming around these top 6 teams, and I think that they're the ones to really watch. But what's going to be fun is all the upsets, the unknown team, Mother St. Mary's or whatever, going to beat Creighton or something. Love the upsets. This is the best tournament in sports, and excited to watch it. I love the fact that our brackets are going to be busted after day one.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like this tournament in any sport like we talked about. Everyone's trying to replicate it. Everyone's trying to do the exact same thing that basketball is doing. It's so exciting. Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday, Sunday, all 4 of those days in the first weekend is by far the best part of the tournament, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's where the upsets happen. It's where the buzzer beaters happen. It's where you see guys break out who you never heard of before. You'll get these guys that have these performances that are once in a lifetime performances. You'll have the big guys show up in the big moments. You'll have the brooms, and you'll have the Cooper flags come out when they're absolutely needed to try to win a game. And you'll see the big coaches on the sideline running up and down, yelling at refs. And there's just nothing like it. I just can't wait.
So one thing I heard a while ago, and I really believe this, the best possible tournament, if you're the tournament director or planner of this tournament, what you want is a bunch of upsets in the first 2 days. And after that, you don't really want upsets. You want the chalk teams to go through that survived. And then you want Duke versus Michigan State and, UConn versus Florida
I think you
in
want
the Final
both
Four.
because, like the year that Florida Gulf Coast went to the Final Four, or the year that George Mason went to the Final Four,
Yeah,
those are
but
huge stories.
when
They
they
get
get
all over the
when they
press.
get to the Final Four, they get kind of embarrassed. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't very compelling.
No, but people love that story. Is my point.
Yeah,
They
they love
love
it
that
going
story.
into that game, but then the game itself is trash. So, you want upsets in the first week, the first few days, rounds 1 and 2, and then you want chalk from there. You want all the blue bloods to get to the finals. That's what is ideal for not only to keep people riveted once their brackets are all busted,
Mhm.
but you want to end with the powerhouses in the finals, and it
True.
gives some sort of gravitas to the tournament.
Do you think that's what the fans want, or do you think that's what the NCAA wants,
I
or do they
think
both
that's
want?
I think all of it together, they all want it because nobody wants to see Duke go mow down some team that like Kent that got there by accident and really doesn't belong there. Um,
You mean like the Dave and Buster's bracket?
yeah, nobody wants to see that. You want to see Duke go up against Florida.
What do you think the ratings would be for Memphis Kent in the final?
It'd be pitiful. Nobody would watch that. So that's my 2 cents is you're hoping for upsets in the early part of the tournament and you want chalk towards the end of the tournament.
I
And I
think you're
think
probably right.
that makes your best tournament.
You get, Florida, Duke in a final. That's going to be huge numbers. Huge, huge,
Florida,
huge numbers.
Duke, Auburn, and whatever else.
Michigan
Tennessee.
Michigan State, Houston.
Yeah.
It's just
Houston,
it's
Tennessee.
really great, great
That's what
basketball,
you
great
want in the
team.
finals. You'll watch
Mhm.
that.
No doubt. I mean, I think the Final Four people will watch anyway, but yeah, the numbers
Of
will be
course.
through the roof.
Yeah.
But I think there is a group of people in the overall fandom who don't watch college basketball the entire season, but will watch the tournament, just like we do with hockey playoffs. They'll watch the tournament, and a lot of those people are rooting for the underdogs. They like it when there's upsets, even in the second weekend. They like when there's big upsets, and I don't think we can discount that. So
Right. I mean, I love the upsets too. It's so fun.
it really is. Well, guys, we will look forward to seeing you next time. We'll talk a little bit about on Monday's weekend recap show what happened in weekend one, and we're so excited about what's going to happen. We'll see how much about our brackets are busted already. I'm
This
sure
is
they'll
the
be.
year. This is the year.
There's never been a perfect bracket ever,
No.
and I don't think there ever will be. But
Like
we'll
90% of the
see.
people are out after day 2.
We will look at on weekend recap on Monday how much in tatters Rob and my brackets are. So it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. And guys, enjoy the games. Do it with your friends. Get yourself some wings, some wheat smoothies. Be around your friends and just enjoy every minute of it. It's the best time
Yeah.
of the year. And guys, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. we look forward to you guys coming and joining us for some of the great content we have coming your way. And as always, make sure you subscribe and bring a friend to the Sports Guyz. And we look forward to seeing you in a future episode.
We love hearing from you. Please give us comments on what you think. Give us ideas on what content you want us to bring. We have an incredible slate. Tom is very organized, and he has us charted out months in advance on all the different sports we're going to be covering, all the different events. And we veer from it occasionally when something warrants it. But we have ourselves packed up pretty well. But there are slots still, some room for us to slide things in there. So if you come up with ideas for us, please don't hesitate. Give us feedback and give us ideas, and we will pack our slate even tighter. So that's gonna be a lot of fun coming up.
And by the way, we are approaching pretty quickly our 10,000 subscriber mark, and I'm planning a very important package we're going to send to the 10,000 subscriber. So make sure you're in that group of people as we approach the 10,000 subscriber. We're going to be sending a really important and special package to that person. So thank you guys again, and let the madness begin. Enjoy the games. Have a great one.
See you.